Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. So today's lesson is going to be a response to an email that I received from my brother. Uh, if you can see, I know it's kind of small here, but if you look to the top left, this is where I'm reading from. It says, Shalom was a woman who begged the Messiah to help her daughter. Was it because she was a child of an Israelite? All praises to the Most High, brother. All right, so let's jump into it. Now, this is going to be the Syrophoenician woman, or the woman of Canaan, where Christ healed her daughter in Matthew chapter 15 and also in Mark chapter 7. This is a big controversy between so-called Christians because of Matthew chapter 15 and verse 24. I'm going to read that real quick because let's jump straight into it. Matthew chapter 15 and verse 24 says, "But he answered and said," this is referring to Christ, this is his words, "I am not sent but into the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Is it just me, or do you remember, the first time, or at least around the first time that you read this after going, years in the church system without ever seeing this verse, and then you see this and you're like, wow. So the scriptures is only for our people, huh? But anyways, because of this verse, it has those that are of the Christian faith, they got them scrambling, man. They try to look for ways to kind of invalidate this as if Yahweh Shah or Christ, as if he was saying this and it meant something else, or something like that. Not to say that in the scriptures you don't have times where things appear to be one way, but it is something else. That's just not the case here. But back to the main point about the brother's question. So her daughter, at least, that she requested to be healed, was it because she was the son of an Israel, or the daughter of an Israelite, or was it something else? Because I'm going to tell you what I believe in this lesson. Now, what I believe is that this woman herself was an Israelite, all right, and her daughter was. And that's why Christ healed her. And Christ, talked to her a certain way because she was of the northern kingdom at this time in the New Testament, called a quote unquote Gentile. All right. So I believe that's the reason why, Yahweh Shah moved a certain way with her, because that's how he moved with the northern kingdom at this time, until the time of the apostles. And, Paul brought the northern kingdom, or the other tribes of the Israelites, into the fold. But I'm going to go through proving that, because we have a lot to digest here, or a lot to break down. First, we have to talk about what is a Syrophoenician woman, as it says here. What is Syrophoenician? What does that mean? Or it says here in verse 22, a woman of Canaan. And here in Mark, it says a Greek. So why was this woman called a Greek, a Syrophoenician, and also a woman of Canaan? What do these names even mean? And first, if you're not familiar with the verse, let's go ahead and get in. All right. That's all I have to say about the introduction here. Let's go ahead and go in so we can make more sense of this and what we're talking about here, and answer the brother's question ultimately. All right, let's go in. So this is the book of Matthew chapter 15 and verse 21. It says, "Then Yahweh Shah went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon." Okay, so let's look at a map at that really quickly. Let's look at a map. So this is where Yahweh Shai is. And let me tell you, looking at maps is, at least to me, I believe it to be vital to, getting a better understanding of exactly what's going on in the scriptures. If you can pull up a map, if you're not aware of, when you're reading the scriptures, if you're not exactly aware of where they are, this being referred to in the scriptures, the places mentioned, it's good to get a visual on it. So this is Tyre and Sidon, right here off the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, right here. So this is where Yahweh Shai is. All right, right around in this area as we read through. Okay. So again, verse 21, then Yahushua went thence and departed into the coast of Tyre and Sidon. Verse 22, and behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with the devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him, saying, send her away, for she cried after us. Verse 24, but he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. All right. Verse 25, then came she and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Verse 26, but he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. Verse 27, and she said, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. So, you know what? I'll finish out with verse 28 first before I provide anything. Let's do verse 28. Read verse 28. Then Yahushua answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. So basically what's happening here is that you have a woman, it says here a woman of Canaan, that came up to Yahushua. Her daughter is being vexed with the demon on her. And she's asking Yahushua to heal her daughter, right? And Yahushua said, I'm not sent but into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And she still, she being the woman of Canaan, still asked for help for her daughter. And Yahushua said here in verse 26, it is not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. Okay, now a lot of people read this to mean that he was calling her a dog, but he didn't necessarily call the woman of Canaan a dog. He just said it's not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to dogs. This is a parable. Okay, it's just a parable. He didn't literally call her a dog. And she said, truth, in verse 27, truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. So she's not calling herself a dog. It's just an analogy to say, because we know this bread here is referring to the word. Okay, this is referring to the word. Now, and the dogs is referring to, you could say, the other nations, but really at this time, the northern kingdom, or the quote unquote Gentiles that we read about in the New Testament, are a part of the other nations. Okay, so basically what he's saying here is that it's not meet to take away from the Jews, those that know they're Israel, all right, and cast it into the dogs of the other nations, or the quote unquote Gentiles, even of our own people, of the children of Israel. Okay, let's keep going. I'm gonna read Mark 7, and then we're gonna go into some additional commentary here. Stick with me because we do have a lot to unpack here. All right, it says the Syrophoenician woman, Mark chapter 7 and verse 24. All right, this is the same account. It's written a little bit differently, but it's the same account. All right, it says, and from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, he being Yahushua or Christ, and entered into an house, and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid. Verse 25, for a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean spirit heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. Verse 26, the woman was a Greek. The woman was a Greek. Keep that in mind. A Syrophoenician by nation. What does that mean? What is a Syrophoenician? Okay, we're going to get into that. And she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. But Yahushua, verse 27, said unto her, let the children first be filled. For it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it into the dogs. Verse 28, and she answered and said unto him, Yes, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. Now you see in this rendition it says the children's crumbs or the children's bread, the children of Israel. Okay. And then verse 29, and he said unto her, For this saying go thy way, the devil is gone out of thy daughter. And when she was come to her house, she found the devil gone out and her daughter laid upon the bed. So Yahushua healed her. All right. Now the speculation between, some of us is that the reason that Yahushua healed her is because, like the brother said in the original question, is because her father, meaning the daughter and the husband of the woman that's requesting her daughter to be healed, was an Israelite. But there's strong evidence to suggest that this woman was an Israelite too as well. And let's finally get into it. So first, we must understand what is a Syrophoenician. Okay, because it says here the Syrophoenician woman, or it says here it's translated as a Syrophoenician woman. Also says a woman of Canaan too, but let's first get the Syrophoenician. All right, let's go to verse 26. It says in Mark chapter 7, it says, The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter. Now let's see. Let's go into the Strong's Concordance here for Syrophoenician. All right. This is Strong's G 4949. All right. Only in the scriptures once as Syrophoenician. It says Syrophoenician, exalted palm. Okay. The name of a mixed nation, half Phoenicians and half Syrians. No. All right. Okay, let's keep going. It says feminine of a compound of G4948 and the same of G5403, a Syrophoenician woman, i.e. a female native of Phoenicia in Syria, a Syrophoenician. See, this is more accurate. It says a female native of Phoenicia in Syria. So you have to understand that the word Phoenician, this is not exclusive to one set of people, even though this is normally referring to Canaanites. Is not exclusive to the Canaanites only, because Israelites were also called Phoenicians in history. Okay, but we're going to show that. All right, this is just an area. You see Syria's here. This is all together, and that's why in Syria occupied Phoenicia at the time, and that's exactly why she was called a Syrophoenician. But that's not a seed line. That's not a bloodline. Okay. Phoenicia is not a quote unquote race, what we would call today a race. That's not a particular nation of people of Phoenician. Okay. A Canaanite is, but even when you see the word Canaanite, it may not every single time be referring to someone that's actually of the seed of Canaan. However, Phoenician dang sure isn't. And let's go to the rendition in Matthew chapter 15. Let's go to verse 22. It says, And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast. Now let's look at the word Canaan here. In the Strong's Concordance, it says G 5475. Now let's look. It says of Canaan. In the outline of biblical usage, it says Canaanite, the name of the ancient inhabitants of Palestine before its conquest by the Israelites. But also, look at this. It says, in Christ's time, a Phoenician. Okay, and we read about in Christ's time, so this is referring to a Phoenician woman, or a Syrophoenician woman, even though it says the words a woman of Canaan. It's just translated that way. This is essentially just a Phoenician. Okay. But again, what does the word Phoenician mean? Because like I said, it's not a Phoenician. Okay, matter of fact, let's just go here so I can explain this to you. Let's get Romans chapter 11 and verse 1. It says, I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. So this is Paul speaking. Paul said that he is an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Now, when you read Israelite, the ITE, that means that that person is a descendant of the person prior mentioned in this word. So here, Israelite, if you're an Israelite, you descend from the man named Israel, who was formerly known as Jacob. Okay, so that makes you an Israelite because you're a descendant of Israel. You get it? But with Phoenicia, there was no man named Phoenix or Phenice. All right, not a Phoenicialite, because there was no man named that. That's actually just a designation for those people by the Greeks. So anytime that you see something like that, you have to be careful and not assume 100% that that person is, of a sea line of whoever. Because I'm speaking in general here, but specifically for Phoenician, you can't assume that it's always a Canaanite when you see the word Phoenician. Okay, let's go into this entry for Phoenicia. All right, it says Phoenicia, Poenike in Greek. It says Phoenicia, look at this time period from 2500 BC all the way to 64 BC. Now, just something really quick to point out. The Phoenicians, if brothers and sisters are not familiar, as you see, they ruled or was established and ruled in, was a civilization rather for what, 2,000 years? I mean, that's major. But when we're in school, we're not taught about the Phoenicians. Why is that? Because obviously they understand that these were what you would call today, quote unquote, Africans. All right, Canaanites are Hamitic people, meaning they come from Noah's son Ham, which inhabited Africa. So you would call them today, quote unquote, Africans or Canaanites. But also they were mixed in with the Israelites. And they know that they're so-called black people. So, they can't talk about them. That's all that really is, because we're really supposed to know more about the Phoenicians. All right, a civilization like that, they always talk about Rome, right? They always talk about Greece, even though, of course, we know that we've inhabited those lands too. But they love talking about the so-called white Romans and the so-called white Greek rulerships. Rome wasn't built in a day and all this other stuff, but they don't say Phoenicia wasn't built in a day. But they had a long-lasting civilization too as well. I mean, that's just crazy to even think about. 2,000 years and you don't hear a peep from them in history. All right. But the Canaanites, they were a very prevalent people for a long time. And they influenced not only the Israelites, but they also influenced, many different cultures and civilizations of the world. All right. But that was just a quick side note. Let's go into this. It says Phoenicia was an ancient Semitic Thessalonicratic civilization originating in the Levant region of the Eastern Mediterranean, primarily located in modern Lebanon. The territory of the Phoenicians extended in strength throughout history, with the core of their culture stretching from Arwad in Syria to Mount Carmel in modern Israel. Okay, beyond their homeland, the Phoenicians extended throughout the Mediterranean from Cyprus to the Iberian Peninsula. Okay, so our people were there in Iberia too as well, because the word Iber really has etymology in the word Eber or Hebrew. All right. But anyways, it says the Phoenicians were a Semitic-speaking people of somewhat unknown origin. That's not true. Which emerged from the Levant around 3000 BC. Okay, this is what I wanted to get to really quickly. It says the term Phoenicia is an ancient Greek exonym that did not correspond precisely to a cohesive culture or society as it would have been understood natively. So basically what this is saying is that that term did not correspond directly to a specific people, at least every single time. It is debated whether Phoenicians were actually distinct from the broader group of Semitic-speaking people known as Canaanites. It really shouldn't be debated because most of these people are Canaanites, but again, they just mixed in with the Israelites too. So sometimes when you see the word the word Phoenician, it's also referring to Israelites too as well. All right. So I think that was it. I think that's all I wanted here. A matter of fact, let's view this really quickly. It says, in reference to Phoenicia, it says each city-state was politically independent, and there is no evidence the Phoenicians viewed themselves as a single nationality. Okay, because again, they had these different city-states, Tyre, Sidon, Byblos. Also, they were known as different things. Also, the Carthaginians too as well. But to get back to the point, the whole point of me going into this is to show you that Phoenicia, or the Phoenicians, were not just one set of people, at least every single time they're mentioned. Mainly Canaanites, okay? Mainly Canaanites. So I'm not saying that in Matthew chapter 15 that it's not a valid idea to believe that this, where it says this woman of Canaan, this is referring to a Canaanite woman, meaning a woman that is from the man Canaan. But there's also reason to believe that this woman was an Israelite too as well. And that's why she was healed. And Yahushua was only healing Israelites at this point. Well, always only healing Israelites, but at this point was only healing Israelites from the southern kingdom. Okay, and we're going to read that here in a second. But let's get Acts chapter 11 and verse 19. It says the church at Antioch. Okay. Now they which were scattered abroad upon the persecution that arose about Stephen traveled as far as Phoenix and Cyprus and Antioch, preaching the word to none but the Jews only. So we're going to go back to this verse eventually. I actually only want to get this definition from this, but we also need to understand that you had the apostles preaching to none but the Jews only, because that's what Yahushua told them to do. Okay, so when you read about in the book of Acts where, like in Acts chapter 13, where Paul was then open up the word to the quote unquote Gentiles, it's because Christ told them to do that, man. He told them to only speak to the Jews. But anyways, that's why I believe that that woman of Canaan, or the Phoenician woman, the Syro-Phoenician woman, was an Israelite. All right, just of the northern kingdom. That's why she was treated in that fashion. All right, let's get G5403. It says Phoenicia, land of the palm trees. That's what Phoenician means, the land of the palm trees. All right, in the last lesson, we talked about the palm tree and how that was worshipped. All right, and that's really just it's really just a symbol of Tammuz, by the way. But anyways, a territory of the province of Syria. That's why the woman was called a Syro-Phoenician. But you know what? I just wanted to grab that really quickly. The palm country. But let's kind of go. Let's continue in. It says here in this article, who were the Phoenicians? All right. Who are the Phoenicians? Where did they come from? Where did they live? With whom did they trade? I'm going to just skip down to this highlighted portion here for the sake of time, because this is not a full breakdown on who the Phoenicians were, because that would have to be a whole separate lesson. Really, I just want to focus on Matthew chapter 15 and Mark chapter 7. Right now, we're just talking about how the term Syro-Phoenician or Phoenician was not exclusive only to Canaanites. It also was referring to Israelites. That's why I'm here. But it says the Bible records that the Phoenicians had a close relationship with the Israelites. Their royalty married each other, aka mixed in with the nations. We mingled with the other nations when we weren't supposed to. Okay, is that not in Deuteronomy chapter 7? All right, it says they traded with each other, and significantly, they never went to war with each other. Stern writes, the Phoenicians were the nearest people to the ancient Israelites in every respect. Okay, so the Phoenicians, again, were mainly Canaanites, but also you will see throughout history the Israelites being mixed in with the Phoenicians and being called Phoenicians too as well, because they were a people close to each other. We were supposed to destroy all the Canaanites when we got into the land, but we just didn't. Okay, which is, part of the reason that we in the situation that we in right now as far as our people. But either way, that's exactly what's going on. Let's get Psalms chapter 106, and we'll start at verse 31. It says, and that was counted unto him for righteousness unto all generations forevermore. They angered him also at the waters of strife, so that it went ill with Moses for their sakes, because they provoked his spirit, so that he spake unadvisedly with his lips. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them. So when Israel went into the land, we did not utterly destroy the nations as the Most High commanded us to do. Okay, when we left out of Egypt, we went into the wilderness, and then by the leadership of Joshua, when we went into the land at that time known as Canaan, and it became Israel, we were supposed to destroy all the people, all the nations inhabiting those lands, but we did not. Okay, so, our people, really, we were destined to fail because, we really had broke that commandment, and the foundation was shook. And the Most High really just proved why he told us to do that in the first place, because we would go into idolatry if we kept them around. We would start worshiping their gods, which we're about to read about right now. Verse 35, but were mingled among the heathen, just like we just read, okay, in this article. Their royalty married each other. The Phoenicians, so in this case, referring to the Canaanites, we had a close relationship with them. The royalty married each other. We never went to war. We traded with each other. The Phoenicians were major traders anyways. Okay. They were sea people. So they would, if you go back to like one of these maps here, I mean, this is nowhere near the area that Phoenicia covered, because, they were traveling all over the known world at that time, and even into America. Okay, so they had access to Central and I believe, South America and Central America before, of course, way before Columbus did. And they know that, and pretty much the average person is starting to understand that nowadays, that Columbus, of course, didn't quote unquote discover America. All right. Ancient people been knew about America, because, here in America, one of the major crops is grown here, or the major something that is here that isn't anywhere else per se, is cocaine. And cocaine, they had access to cocaine, and the mummies in Egypt, they had traces of cocaine in the mummies and things like that. So, man, folks been knew about America. They try to act like, they don't know that. But like I said, the average person starting to understand that nowadays, which should make them know that the rest of the quote unquote holidays is fake too. But anyways, back to the point. It says, verse 35 in Psalms, the 106th chapter says, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Okay, that's why the other nations, including the Canaanites, were supposed to be destroyed, because the Most High knew if we went around them, we would start worshiping their idols. Okay, verse 37, yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils. Verse 38, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. So we talked about that in the last lesson, how Christmas was, a time of, child sacrifice. Okay, and it still is today. It's just not told of us like that. But I guarantee you that this is precisely what's going on behind closed doors. All right, I know that sounds dark, as morbid, but it's just the truth. Okay, it's just the truth. Now, anyways, it says, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. So that's how I know that the Phoenicians and the Israelites, they were mingled together. All right. And let's prove that they were also mixing and mingling, singling and ready to mingle, as they call it today. Our people were marrying, intermixing with those people, the Canaanites. All right. It says 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 13. The little subtitle here says Hiram's work in the temple. Verse 13, and King Solomon set and fetched Hiram out of Tyre. All right. He was a widow's son of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a man of Tyre, a worker in brass, and he was filled with wisdom and understanding and cunning to work all works in brass. And he came to King Solomon and wrought all his work. So I went here to show you that Hiram, which was the king of Tyre at this time, Hiram was quote unquote mixed with his mother was from the tribe of Naphtali, and his father was a Canaanite, or a man of Tyre in this case, which there's debate that, this actually is referring to his father being from the tribe of Naphtali, but we'll tackle that another time. For the sake of this lesson, either way, this shows that no matter whether Hiram was an Israelite or not, either way, it shows that there was intermixing between the tribe of Naphtali, or one of the tribes of Israel, and also the people of that land, the Canaanites, right? So that's where I'm getting at here, just to show you. And that's why in history you would have sometimes Israelites and Phoenicians or Canaanites, which were mainly called Phoenicians, but Israelites were also called Phoenicians because of the intermixing. Okay. Now we have one other example. We have Haram, which is sometimes mistaken for, these are two different people. You have Hiram and Haram, even though Haram is translated here. But let's just get to the point. 2 Chronicles chapter 2 and 11, Haram to assist. It says, then Haram, the king of Tyre, answered in writing, which he sent to Solomon, because the Lord hath loved his people, he hath made thee king over them. Haram said, moreover, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, that made heaven and earth, who hath given to David the king a wise son, endued with prudence and understanding, that might build an house for the Lord, and an house for his kingdom. Verse 13, and now I have sent a cunning man, endued with understanding, of Haram my fathers, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, And his father was a man of Tyre, skillful to work in gold, and in silver, in brass, in iron, in stone, and in timber, in purple, in blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson. So that's the Phoenicians' main colors there. It's crimson and purple. Okay. If anyone knows about, if y'all familiar with the color purple, that was a regal color at this time. It used to cost a lot of time and labor just to make the color purple, and you had to be a royalty to wear it. Okay, all the way up until the time of the Romans, you would have the color purple, signifying royalty. Okay, only kings and those of king's lineage or of royalty could wear the color purple. Okay, that was a big deal. So that's why this is being highlighted here in this fashion, because there was a certain snail, the Murex snail, I believe, that it was crazy. You had to have thousands of them just to make the color purple at this time. And only really the Phoenicians knew how to make it. But anyways, just a quick side note, but also, excuse me, but let's continue. It says also to grave any manner of graving and to find out every device which shall be put to him with thy cunning man and with the cunning men of the Lord David thy father. So again, we see intermixing between the Israelites, all right, and the Phoenicians. Okay. So that's the whole point of me going into all of this. All right. And why I say that, just because this woman was from this area does not mean that she was of the seed of Israel. And of course, Yahushua would know, he would know if she was a Canaanite woman or not. Because I believe if she was a Canaanite woman, Yahushua would have never even had this type of discourse with her. Most of the times that you see Yahushua speaking to anyone in the Gospels, they're Israelites. We see, someone being healed, they're Israelites. But we're going to prove that. That's in Mark chapter 3. And all throughout the Gospels, really, meaning in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But, anyway, let's get back to the point. All right, now that we got that, let's go here. This book is called Who Were the Phoenicians? Okay. I want to go to this particular portion, though. It says, who were the Phoenicians according to Herodotus and Diodorus Siculus? Okay, it says here, we have seen that Azuru mentioned in the El Armana tablets is the Israelite tribe of Asher, and that this tribe conquered the region of Sidon. Remember, originally, we have Tyre and Sidon, where Yahushua was. Now, what this is referring to, you see Tyre and Sidon, the tribe of Asher, that used to be their land. Okay, back when all 12 tribes, before they were separated into the northern and southern kingdom, you had the tribe of Asher over this coastline of the Mediterranean Sea in the coast of Tyre and Sidon. All right, that's all they're really saying here. It says, we have shown that the Exodus occurred in 1446 BC. Therefore, the invasion of Canaan by the Israelites, the destruction of Jericho, began circa 1406 BC, while the beginning of the separate tribal wars was circa 1376 BC, namely in the period of the El Armana tablets. So look up the El Armana tablets if you haven't seen them yet. It's just more archaeological proof that the scriptures, are real. And I don't even like saying that word and like that the scriptures are real. Obviously they are, but for those that, are scoffing and don't believe, this validates the scriptures, I should say, put it like that. Just look that up if you have an El Armana tablets. Okay. The region of Sidon, which is considered a Canaanite Phoenician region, since the Israelites had supposedly not succeeded in conquering it. They conquered it, they just didn't kill, all the nations or kill all the people there like they were supposed to. They were supposed to destroy them. Became, in fact, an Israelite region during the El Armana period. Hence, if the Greeks called this region Phoenicia, and as seen above, this must have been after the conquest of Asher. Then this name refers to an Israelite region, Israelite inhabitants. I'm going to get to the point because I want to read all of this, but my point of going to this is Herodotus, which was a historian. Okay, it says 484 to 425 BC. He interchangeably called the Phoenicians Israelites. Okay, and that's what I'm about to go to. I'm going to just get straight to that. I want to read all through this, but it's going into so much. I know I'm going to end up cutting in, and I don't want to go too much off of the point of the lesson. All right, so we're going to scroll here. It says, as already noted, if Herodotus includes the Israelites under another name, and this must be assumed since he specifies the nations living in the entire region, then it could only be under that of Phoenicians. According to him, the Phoenicians came from the Red Sea area, which have seen he includes both the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf areas of today, whereas the Bible clearly states the Israelites came from Canaan, from the desert of Sinai, where they had gone after the Exodus. This is the point right here. These statements taken together appear to corroborate our assumption that Herodotus refers to the Israelites by the term Phoenicians. You see that? So throughout history, you had the term Phoenician still being applied to Israelites, even though these people, Phoenicians, are mainly Canaanites. Hopefully that makes sense. So you don't call the Greeks, the Greeks did not exclusively know the people there to be only Canaanites. A lot of times the Greeks had these different names for the people that they saw. And then since that area was called Phoenicia, these people were called Phoenicians, but also the Israelites were called Phoenicians. So when you see, like in Matthew chapter 15 here, it says a woman of Canaan, we have to understand that, first of all, this really should be a woman of Phoenicia. All right, because it said in Christ's time that these Canaanites were really just called Phoenicians. But even that is not enough to signify that this woman was exclusively a Canaanite. Okay, now that I got that portion out the way, just to show that Phoenicians were also called Israelites because of the intermixing. That's the whole point of me going into this. Let's go into the other portion, okay, and why I say that this had to be an Israelite in the first place. First of all, really quickly, as I was doing research, on this lesson, one thing you see here too, it says Tyrian, adjective, 1510s of Latin Tyrus or of Tyre, island city in the Levant, from Greek Tyros, from Hebrew Phoenician Zor, literally rocky place. Look, it says Hebrew Phoenician. So the Canaanites and the Hebrews or the Israelites actually spoke the same language. It's pretty much the same language because, again, they intermix with each other. All right, that shows you again how close the Israelites and the Canaanites were. They all got lumped into the same group at times, being called both Phoenicians throughout history. Okay. And why that's relevant is because the way that a lot of times in the quote unquote New Testament words are translated, a lot of times you can't see exactly, the nationality or the sea line of someone mentioned. That's why, throughout the new quote unquote New Testament, you'll see the word Gentile when it's really referring to the northern kingdom more times than not. It's just translated that way. But let's go into Matthew chapter 10 here, so I can start talking about the next point, which again is that Yahushua was only speaking to the Israelites, and mainly just the Israelites of the southern kingdom, which in the New Testament is called Jews. Let's prove that. Now, this is Matthew chapter 10. It says the 12 disciples' instructions for service. Let's start at the top, actually. It says, "And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease." Sound like exactly what the Phoenician woman, or the Syro-Phoenician woman, where her daughter was going through. Okay. Verse 2, "Now the names of the 12 apostles are these: the first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother, Philip and Bartholomew, Thomas and Matthew the publican, James the son of Alphaeus, and Labius, whose surname was Thaddeus." Verse 4 says, "Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him." Now notice it says Simon the Canaanite here in verse 4. Simon was not a Canaanite, he was an Israelite. But look how it's written this way. It's translated to Simon the Canaanite when this is supposed to say Simon the Zealot. Okay. The word is translated here in English as Canaanite, but if you look, it says Canaanite equal zealous. The word Canaanite in itself does not mean zealous, just meaning this word here means zealous. Okay, it says the surname of Apostle Simon, otherwise known as Simon Zelotes. Okay, that's what it's supposed to say. Okay, compare 7067 in the Strong's definition. Zealous, Canaanites, an epithet. Canaanite, it says by mistake for a derivative form, G5477, which is the actual word of Canaan. So as you see, there are men here by mistake for a derivative from Canaan. It's by mistake. So it's not supposed to be translated as the word Canaanite, because Simon was not a Canaanite. He was an Israelite. All right. All 12 of the disciples were Israelites. Okay. Matthew chapter 19 and 28 will prove that, because the disciples are going to be over the 12 tribes of Israel. How are they going to be over the 12 tribes of Israel if they're not Israelites themselves? Okay. But again, this is supposed to be translated as Simon the Zealot, Simon Zelote. Okay. Even when you look at the different translations, you'll see, like even in NLT, which is the New Living Translation, it says Simon the Zealot. Okay. Simon the Zealot, 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 Simon the Zealot. All right. Some of these say Canaanean and Canaanite in these other translations, but it really is supposed to say Simon the Zealot. The reason that that's relevant to what we're talking about here is because this is another time where the word Canaan is not properly translated to mean just a Canaanite per se. Okay, if this is done here, it can be done somewhere else too. So that's why it's important. The word in its purest form is infallible. All right, it's perfect. But we have to understand, when we are reading these translations of the Bible, it's not always perfect. You do have to do further research at times. It's not always what it appears to be on the surface. Okay, but that's okay. The Most High put these things here so that those that are diligent will seek the answers. But anyways, it says Verse 4 again, Simon the Canaanite, really the zealot, meaning he was zealous. Okay, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Verse 5, these 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not. See, Yahushua said, do not go into any of the way of the Gentiles and the Samaritans. So the Samaritans were Israelites, just of the northern kingdom, of the other tribes outside of Judah and Benjamin. Okay, there's 12 tribes of Israel. And the Samaritans made up some of the other tribes, like the tribe of Asher. All right. Like we saw, the tribe of Asher was mainly among the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. All right. But he specified here Gentiles. This is actually referring to the nations, and Yahushua instructed them not to talk to the northern kingdom. Why is that? Because prophecy had to be fulfilled a certain way. That's the only reason, because Yahushua was, he bridged the gap. He was a light into the Samaritans, or the other tribes of Israel. Okay, that's one of the reasons that he came here, but it had to be fulfilled a certain way. Okay, so that's why he did that. Things have to be done, in a certain time frame. All right, verse 6, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. We see that again. Okay, so Yahushua was instructing the apostles here, or the disciples rather, to not go into the other nations, and also to not go into the other tribes of the nation of Israel. Okay, and in my view, that's exactly why you have here where Yahushua told this woman, it's not meet to take the children's bread and cast it to the dogs, or cast it to dogs. Okay, because it was not time for the other tribes to be brought in yet. Okay, that happened around Acts chapter 10. Okay, where the disciples and the apostles, they all started to realize that Yahushua, in the Most High's will was for all 12 tribes to come together. Okay, but we're going to prove all of this. Let's see where we at. Yeah, let's keep going a little bit further, but we're going to prove everything that I'm saying right now. Okay, that sound funny to you, or is new, you haven't heard that, we going to prove it. So it says again, verse 5, these 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles. So, for those in the church system that acts like Yahushua came for all people, that John chapter 3 verse 16 is referring to, all manner of people, then why did he say go not into the way of the Gentiles? Explain that. And into any of the city of the Samaritans enter ye not. Okay. Why? Because he was only sent into the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's it. Okay. Verse 7, and as ye go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, verse 8, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. Okay. Freely ye have received, freely give. So the woman was made as an exception because Yahushua at this time only designated the healing to go into the children of Israel, meaning in this context, the Jews of the southern kingdom, or the Israelites of the southern kingdom, which were called Jews. Okay. Now let's go. First of all, let's go here too. It says First Peter. It says Christ is our example in 1 Peter chapter 2, Verse 21, it reads, "For even hereunto were ye called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps." Verse 22, "Who did no sin, neither was guile found in his mouth." So I had to grab that really quickly because, again, the quote unquote Christians, they act like in Matthew chapter 15 and verse 24, where it says, "But he answered and said, I am not sent but into the lost sheep of the house of Israel." And also in Matthew chapter 10 and verse 6, "But go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel," as if that's, he was speaking guile, meaning deception. Christ was saying this, but he meant something else. No, he meant exactly this. Okay. And that's why every time you saw Christ come up on the scene, he was always talking to Israelites. He was healing Israelites only. Okay. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. So when Yahushua tell, the disciples to only go into, the house of Israel, and then, that's who they were supposed to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, and cast out devils out of the house of Israel, and then go heal a Canaanite woman or a Canaanite woman's daughter. The only logical explanation is that, one, the Canaanite woman or the Syro-Phoenician or the Phoenician woman was not a Canaanite at all, meaning her daughter wasn't either, or the Syro-Phoenician woman was a Canaanite, but her daughter was an Israelite. Those are the only explanations that actually go with the Bible. Okay? That's the only thing that would make sense. Now let's also prove that where it says the Samaritans here, this is referring to the other tribes of the nation of Israel, that Yahushua or Christ at this time, he just wasn't dealing with them on that level. But let me not say it like that. It's not that he was not dealing with them, because he was. It just wasn't time. Prophecy, the way this prophecy fulfilled, it just at this very moment, it was not time for those other nations to fully come into the fold, for them to truly understand who they were. All right. Because also keep in mind, in Mark chapter 7, you did have this woman being called a Greek, right? Which we have yet to touch on, but we will touch on too. Why was she called a Greek if she was a Syro-Phoenician or a Phoenician by nation? Why was she also called a Greek? This lets you know that you could be designated to a certain byword like a Greek or a Syro-Phoenician, but your actual seed line could be different. Just like today, I'm a so-called black man, but if I was born in China, you could say I was from China. But if I tell somebody I'm from China, does that mean that I'm quote unquote Chinese, which is also just a byword too? Right? Or today when you hear the term American, what does that really mean? Anybody could be American. Sometimes you have the designation Chinese American, African American, right? But for the most part, if you just hear American, you don't really know what that means, because that isn't a seed line. There was not a man named America that we're descended from, right? That's just a name of a location. Because the so-called white man, he likes to designate people by the land that they're from, which is all about the seed line. It's not about what land you're from. Okay. So that's where I'm getting at here. This Syro-Phoenician woman is just from this land. It does not necessarily mean that she was a Canaanite. Okay. That's why I called her that's why this passage here in verse 26 in Mark chapter 7 says she was a Greek. Okay. All right. Because at this time, you had people calling themselves Greeks just because of their customs and because of their belief systems, really from the area that they lived in. Okay. Which wasn't always Greece, but that culture had really spread upon a lot of the known world at that time. But anyways, John chapter 4, let's start at verse 7. It says, the woman of Samaria, there cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahushua said unto her, give me to drink. For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, how is it that thou, being a Jew, Yahushua was a Jew of the tribe of Judah, asketh drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Okay, again, the Samaritans were the tribes of the northern kingdom of Israel. But at this time, you had a partition or a divide between the northern and southern kingdom, because the northern kingdom were conducting themselves, at least the majority of them were conducting themselves like the other nations. So, those of the southern kingdom just did not deal with them like that. That's what it says here. Verse 10, Yahushua answered and said unto her, if thou knewest the gift of the Most High, and who it is that saith to thee, give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith to him, sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? This is referring to the word, the living water. Okay. Verse 12, art thou greater than our father Jacob? Yahushua told this woman, our father Jacob. Why did he say our father? Because, and remember, Jacob is Israel, because both of them are Israelites, even though she's a woman of Samaria, which again, Samaria is not a lineage either. That's the name of a land. Okay, Samaria is the name of a land. It's not a lineage or a tribe of Israel. But he still said our father Jacob because he already knew that this woman was an Israelite too. Okay, so this person, the Syrophoenician, is essentially just like the Samaritan woman. Okay, where the Jews had no dealings with them, but she was still pleading for her daughter to be healed, even though Yahushua at this time only designated the apostles and the disciples to only heal the Jews. That's where I'm getting at. Okay, which gave us the well and drink thereof himself and his children and his cattle. So that's the point there. I'm actually going to skip down. Let's go into verse 21. Yahushua said unto her, woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. So that time is now, because our people mainly are not in the land of Israel, right? So that hour has come where we worship the Father, just not at Jerusalem. Okay. Anyways, verse 22, ye worship, ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. So why would Yahushua say this if, salvation is of the Jews, but is also of the other tribes of Israel too as well, right? Will we see of the Jews first, then of the Greek? All right, but why would he say that? Because again, that's just at this time. Okay, prophecy has to be fulfilled in its season. All right. Verse 23, but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. Verse 24, the Most High is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Okay, salvation is of the Jews, meaning the southern kingdom. All right, Yahushua was a quote unquote Jew, all right, of the southern kingdom, of the tribe of Judah. Okay, it says Jewish, belonging to the Jewish nation, Jewish as respects to birth, origin, religion. That's A definition is whack. But they try to do that so they can minimalize the role of the quote unquote Jews in the New Testament to make it seem like it's all the same. All right. But Yahushua, as he said, he was a Jew. Okay. So this is all the outline of biblical usage has on this word here used for Jew. But anyway, point is, Samaritans were Israelites. And that's why you had this woman say this. Now, the last thing I'm going to get to in part 1, because we're going to have a part 2. Yeah, we're going to have a part 2. So I can finish out talking about why this woman was called a Greek. But I do want to go to one verse here quickly. And then we're going to cut out for now. All right, let's get Mark chapter 7 again. And then let's get verse 27. But Yahushua said unto her, let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it into the dogs. So it says, let the children first be filled. Where do we see that at? Romans chapter 1. All right, this is Romans chapter 1 and verse 16. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of the Most High unto salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For the Jew first. That's why Yahushua said, but Yahushua said unto her, let the children first be filled. The children here is referring to the Jews. All right. For it's not meet to take the children's bread and cast it into the dogs. Remember, this woman was called a Greek. So at this time, it's for the Jew first, the southern kingdom first, and then the Greek or the northern kingdom. This woman was a Greek. To the Jew first, and also to the Greek. See? But we're going to prove further in part 2 that this is referring to the northern kingdom or the other children of the book, all right, or the other children of Israel, the other 10 tribes, there's 12 tribes total. But that's pretty much it for now. This is why I say that the Syro-Phoenician woman was an Israelite. All right, but again, we're going to get more in part 2. Lord willing, this was edifying into part 2 and the next time in general. I bid everyone a mighty shalom.